The tissues of pigs are 95% similar to those of humans, so it is not strange to think that many doctors use them. At the time when human dissection was not an option, pigs served as guinea pigs instead of humans. Our main character is a butcher named Maru. He is used to working every day with pigs, but apparently his boss was not very happy with the possibility of Maru being better than him. The muscular man tried to intimidate him. He asked if Maru really thought he could take his place as a butcher with 5 years of experience. The boss hit the axe on the wall behind the protagonist, thinking he would be afraid. The truth is that Maru didn't care about the man's performance. The boss always showed up to make these jokes and show off his body muscles, so the protagonist advised him to leave the axe aside or there won't be a bench for a long time. The manager of the food livestock is called Hong Junho, and he says he's sorry to sell the pieces of meat. Maru focuses on cutting food, but Hong fumbles him again to say that the employee has great knife skills, considering that he has only been in the company for a year. Maru tells the boss to stop disturbing. Hong obeys and decides to disturb Kim Yang, but the girl was busy devouring all the food in the place. Kim worked as an accountant at the food livestock company. It seems that she likes the job a lot. Hong demands that Kim return to the office. Then he hugs Maru, saying that he cares a lot about the employee. The protagonist doesn't believe in it much because he remembers that the boss doesn't pay well, makes him work without time off, and even drags him to sleepless nights because he doesn't want to do it alone. The protagonist adds that Hong pulls him back and forth after work. To top it off, he has to do the slaughter himself. Hong justifies his actions by saying that it is because he loves the protagonist. He remembers Maru's first day at work. The butcher should finish off the pig. At first, Maru looked like a helpless boy with a dagger in his hand, but he did not hesitate to perform the job. It was then that Chief Hong knew that he was in front of a good butcher. The conversation about the protagonist's trajectory continued in the bath. Hong forced him to rub his back. Once again, the protagonist was taken out of work to help the man. He could not be more angry with the situation. Then he warns that he expects to get paid for it. The boss asks if he really needs money that much. Maru answers in the affirmative. Then Hong says that he has a lucrative job this time. Maybe it won't be enough to transform his life, but at least he will be able to get out of that basement room he is living in now. Maru can't miss the opportunity to earn money, and asks what the job is. Hong remembers that he had said that he studied in Japan, in which case his next destination is Japan. A few days later, the protagonist traveled by plane towards Japan. The job his supervisor had talked about was in an urban livestock farm in the country. He was sent because the Japanese livestock company requested meat with urgent labor. So 6 months passed. Maru was forced to work for 6 without taking a single day off. It wasn't much different from his job in Korea, but the protagonist thought it would be better to go through it in his home country than in Japan. And when he got here, they said there was a lack of manpower, but even after 6 months, Maru was the only employee there. A Yakuza-like guy watched his work day after day while smoking cigarette. The protagonist curses the man in Korean because he knows he won't understand anything. The Japanese smiles, thinking it's a greeting. Anyway, Maru feels that there is something extremely wrong going on. Japanese livestock farming requires him to carefully separate the ribs from the pig. The order is suspicious. All other parts of the pig are discarded except for the ribs, which seem heavier than usual. So Maru assumed that the Yakuza-looking men carried something inside their ribs. A thin line on the bone showed that it had been cut off once and reattached. The protagonist tries not to waste time on it. He just wants to finish the job and leave without attracting the attention of the Japanese who watches him. Later, the protagonist called Chief Hong and shouted that he couldn't take it anymore. For 6 months, he has been doing overtime and strange jobs. In addition, there is a Yakuza member who is watching the whole process. Hong calls him a brat and asks why he is complaining about working overtime now, if he has always done it in South Korea. Maru replies that the problem is that the place is very strange. Hong makes it clear that he made an effort to get him to Japan because he knew he needed money, so he asks the butcher not to disappoint. After all, Maru needs to pay his younger sister's school fees and his mother's card debt, so going back to Korea will be a waste. Hong asks the butcher to hold out for at least another month. He will bring him back home after that. The protagonist agrees without much alternative, but is annoyed that he was put in this situation just because of his family condition. The next day, Maru is back at work suspicious. All his effort is for money, so he decides not to care and endure another month. At that moment, someone speaks his name. The newcomer talks in Japanese. Maru tries hard not to insult the watchman with his hands in his pants. The man pinches the protagonist's cheek, saying that he is lucky to have a worker like him in the company, while the Yakuza member praises his skills with the dagger. Maru notices that he carries a gun on his waist, confirming his suspicions that he is working for a Yakuza company. The watchman warns that he will leave early today because his girlfriend is having a birthday, in which case the youngest will take his place. He refers to the newcomer as little brother, but when the watchman arrives, the protagonist realizes that he is nothing young. The former vigilante introduces the protagonist to his friend and says that he came from Korea. The two exchange greetings and the newcomer warns that he has already picked up the ribs. Suddenly the ground begins to shake and the house shakes violently. Murray holds on to the countertop while the old watchman says it's an earthquake. The newcomer holds his ribs as if his life depended on it. But not for long, the plate with the ribs slips out of his hands and falls to the ground. Suddenly a white powder flies from the bones. The fog takes over the place and the protagonist covers his nose immediately. The watchman tries to disguise what just happened and says that probably the butcher has never seen an earthquake. He adds that this white powder must be from the bones. It's no big deal. So the protagonist is encouraged to continue the work as if nothing had happened. Maru obeys. So the men collect the ribs immediately. The newcomer asks the watchman if the butcher really is from Korea. The man confirms. Then the newcomer says that Maru probably won't know that they are hallucinogenic products and won't understand Japanese either. The watchman just yells at him to shut up. The protagonist understood perfectly that the men were talking about narcotics. The watchman realizes the mistake his friend made and pulls the gun on Maru. Everything happened very quickly and the protagonist couldn't believe that his life was going to end like that. He tried hard in the last 6 months to end like this. Maru tells himself that he will not accept this fate, and soon after red liquid flies in the air. Initially he accepted to be a butcher because it was the only job he found. His task was to face a pig. Maru did not hesitate to comply, which left Chief Hong impressed because people are taken by all kinds of feelings after eliminating the first victim. But Maru was different. He continues to do the same job without remorse. That's why Hong was sure that his employee was perfect for the position. Now the protagonist needed to use his skills to prevent himself from being shot. The watchman's arm was thrown thanks to Maru's sharp blade. He held his hand screaming in pain, while the butcher just saw him as a pig. That's why he knew exactly the point he should hit. And the protagonist didn't hesitate even though he knew it was a person. For him it was no different from the pigs that passed by on the countertop after the watchman fell to the floor. The newcomer used the protagonist against the walls, then punched him several times in the face and shouted that he shouldn't have done that to the boss. The watchman was going to propose to his girlfriend today, but Maru ruined everything. The protagonist was so injured by the punches that he knew he wouldn't survive if he stayed there, so he had no other option but to use his dagger again. But the wound was nothing to the muscular man. Maru kept getting beaten by the delinquent, who said the blade was too weak. Then he held Maru's neck with both hands about to finish him off. The protagonist began to lose consciousness when suddenly a flashback appeared. Chief Hong taught how to deal with a pig that has strong bones and a thick layer of fat. He said that the traditional dagger would be enough. So for Maru to become a great butcher, it is necessary to learn to avoid the bones and cut the fat. He will know how to do this when he sees the path by instinct. Fortunately, the protagonist found the path that the boss talked about so much. He hit the enemy in the ribs and advanced to the other side. It was at that moment that the protagonist realized that he was really born to be a butcher. The newcomer was eliminated and his heavy body fell on top of Maru. He pushed the man's body to the side and was paralyzed to see what he had done. The protagonist repeated several times to himself that it was self-defense, but he thought the police would not believe it, so turning himself in is not an option. Now the protagonist thinks about what he will do when he meets the Yakuza. An idea pops into his mind, and he believes he can get rid of what happened just by setting the place on fire. But before the boy has a chance to do anything, someone enters the room and starts shooting. Maru runs to avoid being hit. The man chases him to the freezer. He says it's a dead end. It's the end of the butcher. A silence takes over the place, and the man walks slowly among the pigs in search of his target. Suddenly he finds a boot and is sure he has found the butcher. The bandit shoots without hesitation. He realizes too late that the boot was a trap. The protagonist pushes the pigs towards the enemy, who loses his balance and falls. Maru swings the dagger, hits the man's shoulder. The bandit laughs, saying that the butcher should have aimed at the throat. Then he points the barrel of the gun at Maru, but nothing happens because he can't move his fingers to squeeze the trigger. This happened thanks to the teachings that Maru received from Chief Hong. The man explained that there was a group of nerves in pigs, which goes from the spinal cord to the forelimbs. The human being is exactly the same as the pig. This means that if a person is hit at this point, he will not be able to move. At that time, the protagonist was confused by the fact that the pig and a person are 95% alike. But now he knew that Hong hadn't lied. So the third bandit was eliminated. 6 hours later, the plane that the protagonist was traveling on arrived in Korea. He breathed a sigh of relief when he returned home. Fortunately, no member of the Yakuza spotted him. Maru set fire to the warehouse before fleeing, so he finds it difficult for anyone to find out what happened there. His tracks have been erased and now he will be able to return to his normal routine. At that moment, he is about to enter the house when he notices that the lights are on. He thought his family was awake and put a smile on his face. Mario opened the door and said that this time he brought a lot of money and gifts, but the scene he found in the house was scary. Someone had knocked over the furniture and the place was a mess. Besides there being no relatives there, it seems that someone arrived before him. The protagonist screamed for his mother and his younger sister named Naru, but there were no answers. Suddenly his foot touches something. It's one of those ribs with white powder that he saw in Japan. It was a sign that things were not right. Suddenly a voice asks if he is happy to return home. The protagonist looks towards the voice and sees a group of unknown men. He fears that his family has been taken by the Yakuza. The man with glasses goes through the pocket of his suit, which makes Maru think he has a gun. But then the man takes a badge off his clothes saying that it is from the Narcotics and Organized Crime Investigation Department. The police officer named Han Tasik asks the protagonist to accompany him. Maru doesn't understand why the narcotics team is in his house, but hopes it's not because of Makaza members. He soon asks why the police are in his house. Maru doesn't remember doing anything illegal. The police raises his hand saying that the police didn't do anything. The house is messy because his mother was furious with their visit. Maru doesn't understand why his mother would act this way. So Officer Taesik informs him that the protagonist's mother is involved with narcotics. Maru grew up in a not-so-pleasant family environment. Even after her family fell into ruin, her mother kept spending money extravagantly. The protagonist always knew that the woman was immature, but didn't think she was capable of using hallucinogens. The police said that the woman was out of her mind. She broke everything in the house and was hospitalized. The protagonist saw with his own eyes his mother trying to attack the doctors. The police have already found her in that condition. Taesik displays some evidence that was found in the house. The narcotic was inside the pork ribs. It started to be distributed in this way recently. Taesik questions if the boy knows when his mother started using these things. The protagonist says no. The officer hands him a card with his information and asks him to contact him if he remembers anything. After that, the officers leave the hospital. In the parking lot, Officer Lee complains about the officer smoking inside the car. Taesik says he can't open the window because smoking is prohibited in the underground parking lot. Lee loses his temper and yells that he shouldn't smoke inside a vehicle. Taesik wins the argument when he says that the car is his, so it's in the right place. Lee is silent, so Taesik gives the order for him to research this boy named Maru. At this moment in the hospital, the protagonist tries to understand what happened while he was away. He is sure that the Yakuza members did not move faster than him, so it makes no sense for this hallucinogen to reach his mother in less than 6 hours. At that moment, Maru receives a call from his boss. Hong Soon says that he learned that there was a fire in the Japanese factory. He was worried about his employee. The protagonist says he has work to do and will call later. Hong replies that he knows he returned to Korea because his mother was using narcotics. After saying this, he laughs like crazy, leaving the protagonist motionless. Maru asks Hong to repeat. The boss questions if the butcher did not receive the ribs he sent. The protagonist doesn't answer. So the man assumes that he thought the ribs had been sent by the Yakuza. Maru asks if he did something wrong. The boss doesn't understand why he's saying it, but replies that the boy didn't do anything wrong. Hong adds that the protagonist is a great butcher, so he prepared his place a long time ago. Maru yells, asking what nonsense the man is talking about. Then the boss reveals that he was responsible for sending the drugs to some family members, including the protagonist's mother. His next step will be to send the item to Maru's sister, but this will only happen if the boy refuses his offer. Hong adds that he can use the protagonist's talent as a butcher to increase his company and build a building in Gangnam smoothly. After these words, the man says that he has a car waiting for him in the parking lot. Now Maru's work will not only be with pigs. He hung up the call and was silent. The protagonist went into deep darkness. The scene changes to an unknown location. Two men argue about who is going to carry the pigs. The boy with glasses says he won't do anything, but the man inside the truck unzips the bag and shows that they are not just carrying pigs. He pulls out several black bags while saying that it was Hong's order. This man with a scar on his face is the world head of livestock production named Bake. The boy with glasses is Choi, and he says that a new recruit should be hired soon to take the hard work. The two argue again because Bake remembers that Choi has been his subordinate since he joined the company, so he should be in charge of the bodies. The position of subordinate has been given to Choi since he lost in the rock, paper, and scissors. He even jokes asking if Bake is afraid of new recruits. The veins appear on the boss's forehead from so much anger. The conflict intensifies, leading the two to take their equipment. Bake threatens to beat up Choi. Despite the rivalry, Choi decides not to take it further. He simply turns around and warns that he is returning to the car. Night soon comes. Bake was sleeping peacefully when he was woken up by a cat. He assumes that the animal got there because of the smell of meat. After a few seconds playing with the cat, Bake realizes that Choi has not yet returned. He finds it strange and decides to check the reason for the delay. When he approaches, he realizes that the door has a crack open. Bake enters the dark room, and at the same moment the cat is terrified and tries to escape. The man is frightened by the destruction of the place and releases the animal. He finds someone sleeping and assumes that he is a new recruit. so he asks where Choi is. Baek is sure that he will be scolded by Chief Hong if Choi takes too long to return to the room. At that moment, the man pushes the recruit with his foot after getting no answer. Then he realized, surprised, that in fact that man was Choi. Unfortunately, he had already passed away, and a red liquid was dripping from his mouth. Baek laughs at the situation, saying that it seems that Choi received a visit from the superiors. This time he could not defend himself with the dagger. The man was sure that his co-worker deserved that fate. But what he didn't know was that the person responsible for Choi's attack also targeted him. At that moment, the protagonist walks up to the man with hatred in his eyes. Baek mocks his opponent, saying that he is nothing more than a member of Generation Z. Maru quickly closes the distance between the two, as the guy laughs when he meets the new recruit. In the next moment, he blocks Maru's dagger using his power hammer, the protagonist being surprised that just one counter-attack was enough to lose the dagger. Baek interrupted Maru's thoughts and brought the hammer closer to his face. While all this was happening, Chief Hong calmly prepared a party with his minions. The employees talked about the latest news. They heard that Hong sent Choi and Baek to fetch the recruit. At first they thought it was an exaggeration, but one of the guards defends the boss's idea by saying that this new recruit looks different from everyone else. The officials argued about who was stronger. Some argued that Baek would defeat Choi without a doubt. Junsik remembers the day he worked with the man. Everyone treated Baek as an invincible legend. One day he defeated all the bullies and gangsters in a city. Baek was already very strong using only his hands, but he won an item that perfected him. The hammer that was given to him by Director Hong was invincible. That was the moment when the physically stronger found the strongest equipment. Since then, Baek is called a bull that can't be stopped. At least that's what they thought. Back in the bull's fight against the protagonist, Maru dodged the hammer, but he fell to the ground awkwardly. Baek couldn't believe that a guy with these skills could have eliminated Choi. He became more excited to defeat the protagonist. Maru kept dodging the attacks. Baek laughs like a lunatic as he chases him. He pushes Maru into the wall. It becomes obvious that the man is physically stronger than the protagonist. In addition, Baek is agile and skilled. Maru feels at a disadvantage. Baek does not give him time to think, so a new attack begins. Maru dodges the hammer several times. He manages to superficially use his broken dagger, but finds a blind spot to finally win the fight. However, Baek was agile and stopped the dagger with his teeth. The sight was frightening for Maru. He has never fought a non-unbeatable man, but this is not enough to make him give up. The protagonist swings the broken dagger, however, it hits any part of the enemy's body. Baek laughs at him and says that a mosquito bite will probably hurt more. He decides to end the clash, but the protagonist is skilled at dodging hammer. He almost got hit. Baek became even more agile, and his foot hit Maru's face squarely. The butcher fell to the ground complaining of pain, and was pulled by his foot. Baek threw him towards the wall. Maru couldn't avoid the collision. He stood still while Baek prepared for a new attack. But at that moment, the lunatic man felt a strong pain in his wrist. He noticed too late that the butcher only aimed at his vital points. The protagonist calls him disdainfully and seriously asks if there is any who laughs at Baek's bad jokes. The man felt offended. After all, he introduced himself from the beginning as Taurus and felt happy about it. Baek gets so angry that he yells that he will finish off the rookie. Meanwhile, Hong finishes putting the picture of the protagonist on the wall. He praises the butcher's beauty, saying that Maru could be a celebrity if he wanted to. The employees say that the boss worked the artwork. Hong agrees and wonders how Baek is doing at this point. There is certainly no one on his team capable of defeating the bull. The employees agree that Baek is the greatest. Suddenly, the boss's face darkens and he asks where the respect for Maru is. The men are intimidated. Even so, they think it is exaggerated to treat a 23-year-old butcher like a legend. Hong replies that Chief Baek is just a bull, while Maru is a butcher. Hong trusted his youngest employee and had reason to do so because at that moment Baek was defeated by his own weapon. The protagonist hit the man's vital points in advance, so he lost his strength and couldn't hold the hammer. Now Maru looked at him coldly, while Baek stood on the ground without strength. He thought that the protagonist was just hitting points randomly, but in fact it was all part of his plan for Baek's nerves to be immobilized. At that moment, Maru says goodbye to the man, referring to him as a cow, then uses a dagger as a nail to finish off the opponent. Minutes after Maru finally arrived at the party that the boss prepared, he was greeted with a sign that called him manager. Apparently everyone was happy with his arrival. Suddenly, the protagonist took 2 badges from his shirt and threw them on the ground. The faces of the employees changed when they saw that it was Choi and Baek's identity card. The butcher refers to the men as pigs, which puts Hong's guards on alert, and they quickly take the dagger to defend themselves. Maru only refers to them as filthy pigs. The guards then attack together. The protagonist takes a new dagger and uses Baek's hammer. He was ready to finish off all the security guards. Hong watched everything sitting on a chair, but thought he needed to do something. Suddenly, the boss took something out of his pocket while shouting Maru's name. He was rooting for the protagonist against all the guards. The employees were shocked. Hong taught Mary to treat pigs like humans, because despite look passive, they attack humans. The teachings were put into practice against Hong's security guards. The protagonist knocked out the pigs with one blow, then did the same to the men. Some of the guards were annoyed by Baek's hammer being used by a butcher. The protagonist took a deep breath at the accusations and decided to use the second step he learned from Hong. He used a technique to remove all the red liquid from the pig's body. To do this, it is necessary to pierce the jugular vein. The details were lived in Maru's memory. The attacks are scary for ordinary people. But the protagonist did not stop there and decided to use the third step. He knew a precise method to remove the skin. The technique was used on the enemies. Hong finally interfered and told the butcher guards the other steps of the teachings for later. The floor of the room was a mess, and the protagonist realizes with surprise that there are still some men standing. The employees understood that the butcher really was worthy of the position of manager. Maru thought about eliminating the rest, but was reprimanded by the boss, who said it was time to stop. Suddenly, the protagonist attacked him with the hammer. Hong blocked the blow with his hand and said that he understood that the boy was confused, but he needs to differentiate people from pigs. After these words, the boss broke the powerful hammer with his bare hands. He threw the cake and asked if the protagonist realized that what he eliminated were people. After the argument, Hong ordered him to enjoy the party. However, Mero only wants to know where his sister is. He even threatened to finish off Hong if the man did not answer. At that moment, a female voice enters the room and asks what happened. Kim was sad to see the cake on the floor. Tears flow from her eyes and she asks who caused it. The security guard was about to say it was the boss when Hong stepped on her face. So the blame was placed on the protagonist. Suddenly, the woman shot towards his face. Maru was incredulous when he saw the bullet pass close to his head. He hid among the mess and thought about what he should do. The woman didn't give him a chance to think and shortened the distance between them. Maru knew that her intention was not good and soon pushed the gun back, determined to defeat her. Kim surprised him with a kick to the chin. The protagonist didn't expect her to fight so well with her hands. The girl simply said she was going to teach him a lesson, because he destroyed her cake. Hong yells at the protagonist to be careful because this woman is the best thing North Korea has trained. The warning was too late because at that moment Maru was already in the crosshairs of Kim's gun. The scene shifts to the past, when Kim eliminated a large group of gangsters and ate their food. Hong was surprised when he realized that his target had been eliminated, but he didn't expect the person responsible to be a woman. Kim asked if he was a soldier in the Southern Army. Hong quickly came up with an idea and brought more things for her to eat. He thought it was strange for someone to eat after all this mess, so he questioned why she didn't do a mukbang broadcast. Kim didn't know what that was and he showed a video on the phone. Hong said she could make a lot of money just by eating. The girl's eyes lit up. It was then that the boss took the opportunity to invite her to work with him in exchange for all the food she wanted. At first, Kim refused, saying it was a bribe, but then accepted the offer in exchange for all the food he could have. A week later, Chief Hong learned of a strange explosion sighted in Gaesun. He said if it was Kim who did it. Given the girl's appearance, it was proven that she did. The boss then scolded her for not being able to bring him a single intact popsicle. The scene changes to the current moment. The protagonist changed the fate of the gun and was almost hit. Fighting Kim was not easy. Meanwhile, a security guard took the opportunity to talk to his daughter. He should be motionless on the ground, writhing in pain, but when he learned that his daughter was going to sleep away from home, the man quickly got up, happy that he would have a moment alone with his wife. Junzik was ready to have a new child. The security guards encourage him to leave. Hong finds the men talking hidden behind a white cloth. The boss gets angry because he wanted the employees to work overtime. While they argue, the fight between Kim and Maru continues. Hong asked who they think will win. The security guards support Kim. The boss agrees that the woman has a lot of high-level skills. Although Kim has received the perfect training, Maru is a talented butcher. In a year, he learned everything he was taught and executed it accurately. In a month, he performed the most difficult techniques. Hong remembers that he tried to hinder the boy's progress. Even a boss-level official would take a while to complete, but the butcher didn't even need a minute. This made Hong concluded that he found the ideal man. So I had doubts about Kim's victory. At that moment, the protagonist gets rid of the gun from the woman's hand. The boss shouts that the boy is very good and demands that his employees praise the butcher. The men obey. On the other hand, Kim takes a dagger that she hid in her pants. The fight between the two continues, but there was no one better than Maru to handle a blade. In addition, Kim realized that he was copying her movements. Hong believes in the talent of the two, but knows that in the end what will count is agility. Kim can defeat the protagonist before he reaches her, but Maru can also defeat her. Hong is curious about the result. Then he leaves the employees behind and suddenly hits the ground between the opponents. Everyone is taken by surprise. Hong points to himself and tells the protagonist to come to him. Kim loses his temper and questions how the boss chose the brat for such a high position. Hong just delivers a free food ticket at a nice restaurant. The woman runs after the ticket, saying that she will come back in an hour. She leaves. Of course she will fight back when she returns. Hong takes a deep breath and asks how Maru is. Suddenly the protagonist attacks him, asks where his sister is. The boss pushes him back with the axe while questioning why he is so curious. The question is enough for Maru's body to paralyze with so much fear. A memory of the past appears in his mind. Maru remembers that on a random day when he was 21 years old, he received the news that his father passed away. He became the new head of the family and accepted to work with Hong to be able to support himself. It wasn't so bad because there was someone who loved him as if he were his son. At least that's what the protagonist thought. He even sees what happened to his mother. So at that moment he lost his patience and attacked the boss, asking why the man did that to him. Hong was happy with the duel and helped the butcher improve his techniques. Apparently the boss took the opportunity to train his best student. He scolds the boy for not knowing how to distinguish between real and fake gaps. Mara knew that beating boss Hong by taking advantage of loopholes was not an option, but he doesn't understand what he should do. The protagonist remembers the opponents and tells himself that he has to come up with a different strategy. Hong interrupts his thoughts by asking if he thinks he would have time to think during a fight. The boss took advantage of Maru's low guard to hit the vital point between his legs. The protagonist screams in pain, while Hong makes it clear that there is no way the brat can win. He is sad because he thought the butcher had learned everything he taught. Maru gets up prepared to beat him, but it is in vain. The employees are embarrassed by the scene. They knew that Hong is a strong monster. It will be difficult to beat her. Maru kept attacking. The boss watched with a smile on his face. He said that in a direct fight like this, the biggest advantage is yours for being in a heavier weight class. It means that Maru has to try harder. The protagonist feels humiliated by the situation. Hong then suggests fighting with his fists, but the protagonist does not give up the dagger. It is as if his life depended on a blade. Suddenly Hong throws a table towards him. Maru takes advantage of the moment for a sneak attack, which goes totally wrong and ends with Hong adjusting his shoes. Then he pushes Maru. The butcher gets hit many times and can't react. The boss was finally willing to tell why he did these things to Maru's family. But before he questioned how much the butcher thought those hallucinogens he burned in Japan were worth, only $300 billion. Now all that money is gone and Maru can bet those guys were unhappy. Hong adds that the Japanese ran to him with wide and red eyes. Maru could never face them, so Hong managed to cover the boy. This is the role that a loyal friend would play. But the boss did not hesitate to retaliate for the mess that the protagonist made, and what happened to his family was unpunishment. Now the bodies in the room prove his ability to return the money that was destroyed by the fire. The boss waits for a handshake from Maru. If he agrees to work together, the amount of 300 billion could increase even more. Hong walks away after the offer and makes it clear that the protagonist will be able to start working when he is fully recovered. Maru finally breaks the silence. He asks why Hong did all this. The boss could have talked, and they wouldn't have gotten to this point. Hong replies with a scary smile that is more interesting. The protagonist bursts into laughter, as lunatic as the boss. The two seem to have lost their minds, but Hong's smile went away when Maru stood up. The butcher said he saw him as a mentor and father, so Hong got his hands on his family because he thought it would be more interesting. A futile fun that made Maru furious, in which case the boss can't even be compared to a pig. The protagonist promised he would finish him off. His intimidating eyes made the boy's intention obvious. The boss told him to do whatever he wanted while ripping his own clothes. Hong left his body exposed for the boy to assess if he really looked like a pig, then said that no matter how good a butcher could be, he needs confidence to do something. While the two argued, Junzik wrote a letter to his dear wife, where he said goodbye and said the location of his money. He was sure he would not get out of the chaos alive. At that moment, the fight between the men became more tense. Hong said he was sad with his student's words. He taught him everything to Maru to simply treat him that way. This time, the protagonist decided to use the teachings against the teacher himself. He waited for the moment when Hong would try to hit his face so he could hold the handle of the axe and counterattack. The protagonist stopped the blade inches from the enemy's face. The boss thought nothing was going to happen, but suddenly he is hit in the chin and red liquid drips on the ground. The employees were incredulous at the scene. Even Hong was surprised when his glasses broke in two after the blade advanced on his face. The successful attack was because the protagonist turned the dagger and adjusted the position. He tried the attack once again, but was kicked away. Hong would not let something like this happen anymore. At first he thought Maru was joking when he said he wanted to finish him off. Then the guy left the low guard. He didn't think the protagonist would really try, in which case the boss has no choice but to finish Maru first. The protagonist gets up in pain and realizes that he has no way to escape. Hong appears before him and asks if the butcher knows from which direction his axe will attack. Suddenly, the axe lowers with full force, but is blocked by the hammer that Maru stole from Bake. The boss's axe is destroyed when it collides with the protagonist's item. Maru takes the opportunity to hit the man just like it did with Bake. The powerful attack reminds Hong of the bull, The hammer apparently intensified the anger in the user's body, but the boss realized with concern that the moves Maru was using against him were the same as the ones Choi used. The protagonist was able to copy the same abilities in such a short time. Lastly, Maru used Kim's moves. Junzixai watched the scene impressed. He didn't think that there could be anyone capable of copying all the techniques of the people he has fought so far. The guard felt that for the first time there was a chance for the boss to lose. Hong was not going to accept being defeated like that. He squeezed Maru's neck hard and hit precise punches. The man questions how the butcher dares to call him a pig when he cleaned up all the mess that was left in Japan. After these words, the protagonist was thrown away. He gets up in pain. Hong says he hasn't used all his power yet and asks if the brat really wants to go all the way. Maru remains with his head down. The boss didn't want to do anything against him, but now that he's been threatened, he can't let him go. At that moment, the protagonist wonders if this will be the end of him. He threw away all the memories and positive feelings towards Hong so that he didn't hesitate. At least that's what Maru thought, but there's one thing he's sure he didn't throw away: their will to live. At that moment, the two prepare to finish off each other. Suddenly, a gunshot noise is heard. Kim invades the room and screams, asking what is happening here. The next moment, the girl paralyzes and the gun falls to the floor. Hong calmly says that his noisy child has arrived. He then drops the key to the office on the floor and warns her that all her contracts are there. She can find it inside the safe. Kim stutters, asking what happened. Hong just warns her to take half of the money, and the other part is Maru's. After these words, Hong's body falls to the ground. He was eliminated by the student himself with a dagger. Tears welled up in Maru's eyes, and he told Kim to be quick if she wants to retaliate for what happened. Hong was an orphan child. He fought for food with several other people in need. At that time, the law of the strongest was respected. Hong lived like the king of a pigsty. Humans were like pigs, so the chief hunted like an animal and took everyone's food. Men were trapped in an iron cage and were always defeated by Hong, who began to be hated day after day. But he acted that way thinking about his own survival. So Hong was selected as one of the best survivors by the owners of the pigsty. He took advantage of the moment to eliminate the most important member of the place. Everyone was in shock when they saw him hold the dagger. Hong was called a pig, and it didn't take long for the superiors to try to finish him off. Even so, the chief managed to escape. Years later, he returned alive to the iron cages in which he was imprisoned. Hong used to spend his childhood in that place fighting for food and being a servant. He returned because he liked the adrenaline. Many times the chief came close to being murdered, but he always returned to the pigsty that he considered his home. One day, the boss realized that he could no longer differentiate a human from a pig. That made him sad, and when he returned to the superior's room, the men referred to him as a pig. Hong just kept silent. Then he was beaten for it. The man apologized to a woman, saying that the servant was not acting correctly. The president slapped him in the face and said to continue the meeting. At that moment, Hong felt that he would never be treated like a human by the superiors. So in a moment of madness, he stood up and shouted that he was going to become the king of pigs. The security guards did the protection of the president quickly, but Hong's target was the man who cursed him. Then he hit him in the face and then stole his glasses. The president found the scene interesting and with a smile said that I was going to give him a chance. It was after that day that Hong's empire was born. The chief spent the next few years of his life raising puppies and training them. The first was Kim, then Maru. Hong was satisfied with his creations and dreamed of the day he would be seen as a human again, but everything changed when he received a call saying what the protagonist caused. Hong solved everything and talked to the Japanese, but the president demanded that Maru be discarded. Hong didn't think it was fair, because he had already made a deal with the Japanese. The woman just said that he would go back to the pigsty if he didn't follow her orders. After the call came to an end, Hong slammed his fist on the table hard and told himself that he wasn't going to let anything bad happen to Maru. For this reason, he tried to convince the protagonist to work with him, so the president could change her mind about the butcher. But then the protagonist began to see Hong as a pig too, arousing the boss's fury. He couldn't stand being seen like this by someone he raised and took care of so well, so there was no other alternative but to eliminate Maru. But Hong couldn't do that. After all, the protagonist was also one of his children. Before he passed away, he asked if Maru saw him as a human now. Hong advised him to be a human and not a pig. After that, the chief passed away with a cut on his chest. He left as a human by refusing to destroy his own creation. At that moment, a man approached the fallen body of the chief and said that he wanted to be the one who would finish him off. But he arrived late. The newcomer is Choi Kijong, managing director of the livestock group. He took Hong's eye as a trophy and wished the man to rest in peace. Then Kijong called the president and confirmed what had happened, but said that the safe that Hong was in charge of disappeared. Kijong asked her not to worry because no matter where the killer flees, he will be caught and will be torn to pieces. The safe will be found sooner or later. Kijong knew who was responsible for Hong's demise thanks to the security camera. Murray's face was filmed, as well as that of Kim and Hong's 3 gangsters. After the protagonist eliminated the boss, Kim didn't believe her own eyes. She didn't think Maru was strong enough to finish off Hong, but her instincts screamed for her to run away from the butcher at any cost. In this case, Kim decided not to attack Maru. She raised her hands and surrendered. The protagonist thought that the girl was only doing it to be eliminated faster. The minions faithfully protected her. The guy with glasses warned that the reinforcement of the headquarters is coming. Everyone will be eliminated if they don't run away now. They tried to convince the protagonist that they were now a team and should stay together. Maru agreed, but before asked where her sister was. The gangsters were waiting for an answer from Kim because she was the one who was in charge of the girl. Kim played dumb for a while, but soon remembered what had happened. Hong asked her to take Naru to a restaurant while taking care of the protagonist. Kim obeyed and the two ate well. But when it was time to pay the bill, there was an error. The card had the limit exceeded. Kim let Naru wash the dishes and went to get another card. That's when she arrived and the party cake was on the floor. After that, a fight started with the protagonist. That was the whole story that the girl told. The scene changes to a little later. The gangster trio encouraged Kim to jump out of the helicopter and find the protagonist's sister, but the girl was scared. They questioned how she became a member of the special forces. Kim said she wasn't ready, but the protagonist's gaze was enough to kick her out of the helicopter. Maru's plan was to save his sister and mother as soon as possible, but he knows that the world group will arrive soon. The scene changes to the next day. A house collapsed and Officer Tae-sik was called. The police were investigating the house of an elderly woman because the neighbors reported the noise. The ground was stained by a suspicious red liquid that was soon identified. Officer Tae-sik questioned if there were any victims, but the officer next to him said that there was no body. Tae-sik soon said that they should return to the hospital where Maru's mother is. At that moment, the protagonist and his new friends visited his mother, but he was informed that the patient was released early by people in suits. Maru's face darkened. That was not the only bad news he would receive. Suddenly, Junzik received a call from Kim. The girl warned that Naru disappeared from the restaurant. She was taken by people in suits. The protagonist knew that his family members would be used as hostages. So without thinking twice, he fled the hospital. Junzik tried to stop him from going by saying that the headquarters of world security is very dangerous. Suddenly, someone enters the hospital, and the protagonist paralyzes. The scene changes to the hospital lobby. A man with an eye patch soon says that he didn't imagine he would find him this way. He greeted the officer. Tae-sik knows Ki-jong for the mess he has already made. But the officer is accused of interfering in the lives of several people. Tae-sik says that this is not something that a man who became senior administrative director replacing people should say. He soon asks what the gangster is doing in this place. Ki-jong replies that it is a hospital. He came to visit a person. After that, the men walk in the opposite direction, and the gangster encourages the officer to mind his own business. Suddenly, a lackey runs to Ki-jong in desperation and warns that Maru has returned to the hospital room. The gangster quickly puts his finger in his mouth and then breaks his teeth, causing the man to not say any more words. Tae-sik tells the man that his subordinate is talking too much. Ki-jong makes it clear that next time he will meet him at his funeral. The threat made to the policeman did not shake him. Tae-sik replies that he will ensure that his donation to the funeral is not small. Ki-jong leaves the hospital very angry because he didn't think his target would move so fast. It seems that there is someone supporting Maru. The scene changes to the protagonist. He becomes motionless when a man in a suit enters the room and greets him. The seemingly kind man asks Maru to get into the car, but the protagonist thinks that he was responsible for kidnapping his mother and sister. So without thinking twice, the butcher pulls the knife on his jacket and threatens to finish off the man. Suddenly, the newcomer lowers his head as a sign of respect and apologizes for the rudeness. He says that his president is inside the car and will explain everything soon. At that moment, a kind woman with black hair says that it is a pleasure to meet him. She introduces herself as Shin, president of the Charlotte Hotel. The protagonist yells at her to stick this introduction elsewhere and asks where her family is. Maru's 2 gangster allies say that everything is fine and that he can stay calm. The bespectacled servant refers to the protagonist as manager and shows that his mother is fine. Junzik tries to understand why he allied with the Charlotte group. The bespectacled servant warns that the world group moved too quickly. He had no choice but to ask Charlotte for help. Maru questions if they really are different from the world group, since they took his family without his permission. The bespectacled servant decides to show the footage from the hospital security camera, where the world group appears scouring the entire place in search of the protagonist and his family. This only proves that if it weren't for the help of the Charlotte group, her family would be in danger. Maru hesitates even though she knows he's right. Shin asks the butcher again to get in the car. She will take him to her family. The Charlotte group focuses on pharmaceuticals, hotels, department stores, petrochemicals, and finance. On the other hand, the world group focuses on security, defense industry, trade, distribution, and construction. Both companies wore the skin of large corporations, but they fought a fierce battle in the shadows. One man put an end to the long battle with his brute force. His name was Hong. Then Charlotte was defeated and then divided into two: those who want to hand over the Charlotte Group to the World Group, and those who want to protect and maintain the Charlotte Group. President Shin is part of the second group. She told Charlotte's story to the protagonist, thinking about being honest with him. Maru just told her to be direct. Shin says that even with Hong's passing, the World Group still holds overwhelming power. This means that taking care of her family and escaping the World Group would be practically impossible alone, so she wants to help Maru using Charlotte's power. Suddenly, the gangsters started screaming and pointing out of the car. The driver brakes the vehicle when a white car stopped in their path, but he loses control and the people inside the car are thrown. The driver finally manages to stop the vehicle when he hits the road barrier. Shin opens her eyes, scared, thinking of the worst. Then she sees that she has been protected by the protagonist. He hugged her at the moment of impact and asked if everything was okay. At first, Maru thought it was the members of the World Group, but the woman warned that they were probably people from Charlotte's other group. After all, the group was divided in two. She soon noticed a red liquid running down the butcher's forehead and tried to wipe it off. Shin reveals that her older brother named Unju is trying to eliminate her so he can deliver Charlotte to the World Group. At that moment, with a gentle smile, she asks Maru to act as her sword while howl. In return, the group Charlotte will protect her family. Maru opens the car door while saying that she will have to prove that she can do it. Then he will become your sword. The scene changes to Kijung. The men stood lined up waiting for the chief to pass. He walked slowly and opened the door to meet the leader near Hong's coffin. Everyone watched the funeral in silence when Kijung arrived. The president of the World Group named Dane angrily asks what happened to the delinquents. Kijung replies that one of them ran away, but he found someone else. The scene changes to the restaurant. Kim went in search of the protagonist's sister. She knew that her comrade would not leave her alone when he learned that Naru was taken by someone unknown. Anyway, the girl thinks that the best thing to do is to destroy the place, but she's stopped by several men in suits. They are the envoys from Kijuang. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the men who intercepted the protagonist's car prepare to fight. They take with them iron sticks and daggers. The leader of the group warns that Unji will be happy when his sister is eliminated. This man is Byung-oh. Charlotte's head of pharmaceuticals. The men find protagonist protecting the car and ask if he is Shin's lover. Before anyone has a chance to ask any questions, Maru quickly finishes them off. This impresses even the protagonist. He thinks it was too easy and assumes it's because the people he's been fighting with were much stronger than common delinquents. The men were defeated in seconds. Only Byung-ho remained standing. His hands trembled with fear, and yet he tried to defend himself. But it didn't take long for him to meet the same fate as the other delinquents. Shin gets out of the car and with subtle steps approaches the butcher. He looks at her and says that he just proved his worth by defeating everyone. So it's time for her to prove that she can protect his family. A silence takes over the place and the protagonist asks how they will get to his mother if the car was destroyed. The woman gives a smile and says she prepared something. Then he sees a helicopter flying over them before the protagonist can leave. Shin says he will show the power he has to protect his family. In this case, their next destination is the funeral of the person Maru eliminated. The members of the World Group decided to hold Hong's funeral in a temple. It was a great way to say goodbye to the chief. The monks participate by making a farewell mantra, while the president looked at the body from his old friend. Kijuang is called by a servant. The man warns that there is a problem outside the temple. The problem is Maru. The protagonist wore a suit he got from Shin to attend the funeral. Back at the restaurant, Kim quickly finished off the World Group members, then stole their money. Suddenly she gets a call and someone on the other end of the line warns that the Maru manager went to Hong's funeral, so they must accompany him. A smile appeared on the girl's face because she thought she would have eaten on the spot, but she is warned that it is actually easier for them to become food. The scene comes back to the protagonist and the members of the World Group begin to surround him. The delinquents are incredulous, wondering how this dwarf brat managed to finish off the boss. It didn't make sense because Maru didn't even have the physique for that. Shin asks how the butcher is feeling. The protagonist says that he is just anxious to find out how she will prove her worth. Suddenly a man touches his shoulder arrogantly and asks how the killer had the courage to go to the funeral accompanied by Charlotte's impure wife. This man is Min-seok. He asks if Charlotte has always supported him. Min-seok assumes it was all their plan from the beginning. At that moment someone catches Min-seok's attention. Kijung simply pushes the man back with all his strength when he is ignored. He introduces himself as the managing director of security for the World Group and demands that he be treated according to his position. Superiors Wong and Chil join the conversation and tell the man not to have fun alone. The protagonist checks to see if his dagger is still in his pocket in case he needs it use her in emergency. But Shin touches her hand and stands in front of him. She asks what the members of the World Group will gain by doing anything to hurt the butcher. The answer is simple. The officials say they need to defend Chief Hong's honor. They will do it after finishing off the brat. Shin questions if this honor they are talking about is fair when a group attacks a single person. She remembers that Maru defeated Director Hong in a one-on-one fight. When Hong was alive, no one had enough courage to attack him. But now, for some reason, everyone feels more confident when they gather in groups. Shin's words anger some of the men and she is insulted, but the woman stands firm and says that no matter how divided Charlotte is, she will definitely not let anyone touch her people. This means that the Charlotte group will fight a battle if the protagonist is eliminated. Shin believes that it will be very destructive to the world group itself if this happens, but she lets them make their own decision if she thinks she can handle it. In the end, Shin insults the mother of the men to provoke them. Not even the protagonist expected something so serious. At that moment, someone claps and calls the girl's attention. President Dane joins the conversation and says that Shin speaks well, just like his father. Dane looks carefully at the protagonist's face and confirms that he was the one who eliminated Hong. Maru feels intimidated by the woman's look. She just smiles and tells the men of the world group to accompany her. Maru is alone with Shin and asks who this woman is. She replies that she is the president of the world group. Dane is the person Maru should be most careful with. The protagonist is on alert after this advice. Then the two finally enter the funeral room. The huge image of Hong Center draws attention. Maru could be sorry that everything ended like this, but Hong messed with his family, so there was no other way out. At that moment, the protagonist remembers Hong's last words about being a human and not a pig. He bows as a sign of respect and wonders why the boss decided to be eliminated. Hong simply received the attack without reacting. Maru doesn't have the answer to this question, but decided to follow the man's advice and find out for himself in the future. The protagonist is sure he can do it if he uses all the teachings of his mentor. President Shin says that from the moment he crosses the door, he will be her sword. Maru smiles and leaves the temple with her. The two get into the helicopter and leave. Kijoon lights a cigarette and angrily says that he will finish them both. What happened today left him completely out of control. A week later, the employees of the Charlotte Hotel receive the president. The manager soon warns that those people are making a lot of noise. It turns out that the three gangsters of the protagonist tried to open the safe in every way. It seems that Hong forgot to leave the key, so now they are wanting to break the safe at any cost. Shin asks the manager to ignore the noise. She can't do anything because the three idiots are Maru's friends. The man agrees and says that there is another problem. The woman Shin brought is eating all the customers' food. Shin agrees that they are a burden, but it's been a while since the hotel gets so lively, so she decides to ignore Kim too. Shin finally enters the VIP room to find Maru and her family. She speaks kindly to Neru. The protagonist's sister asks the president to tell her why they are here. Maru makes the move of no with her head. Shin understands that he doesn't mean anything because the family was put in danger because of him. That's why she says that Maru didn't do anything wrong and they shouldn't worry. The protagonist's mother thanks Shin for help them. She also asks the president to take care of her son. Shin smiles and promises that everything will be fine. Suddenly someone breaks into the room saying that he has a problem. At first the woman thought it was someone from Maru's group, but the manager said it was her brother Unju. The vice president is sitting in the lobby of the hotel accompanied by beautiful beauties. Meanwhile at the police station, Detective Tae-sik tries to find out who eliminated Hong. He put the photo of those possibly involved on the criminal wall. Hong was suspected of being a distributor of narcotics. The next evidence is about a Japanese workshop that was believed to be a narcotic supply center. It turns out that it was set on fire. The last event was a week ago. A 50-year-old woman passed away due to the use of hallucinogens, and soon after her house collapsed. The woman who was receiving treatment also disappeared without a trace. Tae-sik also remembers something suspicious when he went to the hospital. The workers of the World Group were looking for Maru. The officer is still not sure if the butcher is the cause or the victim, but it is certainly the common denominator in all these incidents. The only information the police have received now is that he appeared at Director Hong's funeral with a woman. Tae-sik did not come to any conclusion. Suddenly, the policeman interrupts his thoughts to display a photograph of the protagonist and Shin during Hong's funeral. He eventually discovered the woman's identity. Tae-sik becomes motionless when he hears the policeman say that she is the president of the Charlotte Hotel. At the same moment at the hotel, Shin tries not to lose control in front of her brother. Unji teases her by telling her to stop working a little and enjoy. The protagonist asks if she should finish him, but Shin says that everything is fine and takes the bottle of wine, then pours it all on the vice president and insults him. She admits that she always imagined that her brother would join feudal people, but she didn't imagine that she was walking a dog from the World Group. The woman was referring to Kijuon, who was sitting in the hotel lobby at that moment. Shin turns her attention to Unju. Unju remembers that the Charlotte Group is theirs, but her father is still alive and Unju is coveting the president's position, even bringing an enemy to the hotel. Shin adds that this is why her father named her as his successor. Unju remains with his head down in the face of the teasing, but he soon regains his good mood after having an idea. The man says that it is unfair that only he tries the wine. The next moment, the guy forces the girls to drink too. Shin just watches her brother lose control. Suddenly, he throws the bottle of wine towards her. Shin just watched her brother say that she is acting as president when she was just chosen as successor. A scary smile appears on her face, and he says that their father has become a vegetable. This means that she will not inherit anything until the man is buried. At least the girl is not reciprocates that her sister did. Shin says that he can act as he wants until then, but he must worry about the back of his head. After all, the attack can come from any side. Suddenly, the fight between the brothers is interrupted by a laugh. Kijong says it's a silly sibling argument. Shin forces a smile when kicking the dog out of the world group. She says that this is the territory of the Charlotte group. Kijong gets excited when he is called a dog for the second time. His hand quickly approaches the girl's face and the guy says he will teach her good manners. It is at this moment that the protagonist draws his dagger and hits the delinquent's hand. With a cold voice, he tells the guy to get out of here, or else the next funeral will be his. Kijong looks at the cut on his hand and thinks it could have been worse. It's interesting because his next opponent has to be at the same level. The man wipes the red liquid, saying that he is looking forward to the duel. At that moment, Kijong attacks the protagonist with his bare hands. His nails leave a wound on the boy's arm. Maru wonders how that happened. He is sure that he blocked the attack, but for some reason he was still injured. It is clear that the enemy has nothing in his hands. That's why the protagonist doesn't understand how the scratch appeared on his arm. It means that Kijong's grip is monstrous, but it's nothing when compared to Hong's skills. The fight starts in the hotel lobby. Shin apologizes to the guests for the discomfort he's causing them, so he asks everyone to evacuate to the outside area. Adequate compensation will be delivered for today's incident. The tenants leaves a hotel. The president turns her attention to the conflict. She worries that the protagonist cannot handle the world group's dog. The fight is intense, and the opponent dodges the dagger. Kijong realizes that his rival's abilities are the same as Chief Hong's. Even so, he doesn't think it's enough to be defeated. During the duel, new discoveries were made. Kijong was surprised when Maru demonstrated here he also knew Baek's techniques. As if that wasn't enough, the protagonist displayed Kim's techniques. Kijong understood that Hong had a very special role in this butcher's life, because he even taught him all these different skills, but it's still not enough. The protagonist is pushed back, and the rival takes advantage of the moment to light his cigarette. He calls Maru pathetic and says he doesn't know what Chief Hong saw in him. The butcher didn't expect his opponent to be so strong. Either way, he is confident that he can win. On the other hand, Kijong gets tired of being nice and decides to end it as soon as possible. With a single attack, he immobilizes the protagonist. Maru was hit in the chest and tried to catch his breath. Kijong says that due to the skills he just saw in his opponent, it was clear that he did not eliminate Hong. In fact, it was Hong who let this happen. Maru loses his patience hearing his mentor's name being mentioned so many times. He simply runs with dagger in his hand towards the dog of the world group. At that moment, Kijong puts his hand on Maru's chest and spins the butcher in the air. The poor boy falls to the ground holding the injured spot. The man says he understands why the boss liked his students so much. It seems that he has a good fighting spirit. Maru replies that he also heard a lot about Kijong. His master called him one-eyed wretch. The words hit Kijong frighteningly, making him get out of control and hit the fist in Maru's stomach. Then a sequence of punches began on the boy. Kijong yells that he was the only one worthy of finishing off the boss, but the protagonist got in the way of his dream. At that moment, Maru stands motionless on the ground receiving the blows. He promised that he would protect his family at all costs, however things seem to have gotten out of control. In addition, the protagonist does not know how many other people there are who are as strong as this guy. Maybe he can't even protect himself. Kijong threw his fist harder and harder. He was encouraged by the vice president of the Charlotte group to finish off the butcher. The happiness on the man's face was gone in seconds. Suddenly a figure appears and points the gun at Kijong's head. The man smiles when he sees who the newcomer is. Tae-sik returns the smile, saying that he can fire as many bullets as necessary if the scene continues. Kijong surrenders and says that he was only teaching the child a few things. Eunju insults the police for disrupting his plans and is restrained. Tae-sik says that Kijong seems to have aged. After all, he was hit in the chest by a brat. The delinquent had not seen the wound before, the officer said. He then realizes that the protagonist used the same attack as his. It's as if the boy copied his skill right after receiving it. This only proves that the boy is interesting, worthy of a student of Chief Hong. The protagonist is handcuffed by the police and advised to speak in the presence of a lawyer. The arrest was a surprise and he didn't understand anything, so Tae-sik said it was on suspicion of murder. Shin makes it clear that she will do everything for him to get out of jail as soon as possible, no matter how far she has to go. Maru thanks her and asks her to take care of his family. Kijong questions if he is still worried about his family after all this. Will certainly have a long way to go before becoming like Hong. Maru replies that no matter how long it takes, he will destroy Kijong with his bare hands. The guy replies that he can't wait for it, and then the two go their separate ways. Sometime later, Shin has the office invaded by the three gangsters. They learned of the protagonist's arrest and were worried. Shin says that the police ignored the problems caused by Vice President Imju and arrested only the Maru. Maybe it's because the world group has people infiltrated in the police. The gangsters say they can't leave things like this. Kim says she has no reason to save the butcher. She lost her job because of him, so she won't do anything. The gangsters think differently and are willing to save the protagonist at any cost. After all, he is the manager now. Kim is too busy eating. At that moment, she discovers that she is only having the right to eat anything thanks to the butcher. The girl decides to confirm the story with the president. Shin replies that in fact he is only treating her well because he is part of the protagonist's group. Kim says she didn't know that, and from the back to leave. The gangsters try to stop her, so she says that she will bring the protagonist into her own hands. Meanwhile, at the police station, Maru waits anxiously for President Shin. Officer Tisik finally breaks the silence. He asks if it is a coincidence that the protagonist's name is involved in the case of the ribs with hallucinogens and the murder of Han. In addition, the police found traces of liquid hawkers of world livestock workers in his house. That's why he questions what Maru's connection is with the world group. Before the protagonist answers, the officer makes it clear that he just wants to help him. At that moment, the second superintendent Kiju enters the room with a plate of food in hand. He says that the boy has already been sitting in the narcotics department for many hours and hasn't eaten anything, so I brought something to feed him. Tae-sik tells the superintendent to leave the plate and leave. Kiju whispers in the officer's ear that the mayor is very angry about the situation. They arrested a guy with no evidence clear. Tae-sik says he needs to leave for a while. He leaves Kiju in the role of taking care of the boy. The superintendent gives a kind smile and advises the protagonist eat slowly. He will not ask any questions. Maru assumes that Shin has already done something to help him. The scene changes to President Dane's office. She coldly says that it's ridiculous for a guy to fight in public space. To top it off, Charlotte's vice president openly flirts with women in his company. This clearly diminishes her corporate value, so Dane questions if they both want to be destroyed by her, because of the trouble they both caused at the Charlotte Hotel. The media has started to doubt President Shin's abilities. That's why she will have a hard time moving for a while. So Unju must take control of the board of directors for a while, in which case she asks the men to stay out of trouble. The scene changes to the protagonist. The superintendent pushed his head towards the soup when the butcher refused to answer some questions. He was sure that Maru had a connection with the world group and wanted more information. A few minutes later, three men walk through the narcotics department. The leader is the white-haired guy. The footman warns that all the cameras have been turned off. No one will know what happens here for about 30 minutes. The white-haired man replies that this is great and opens the interrogation door. A strong smell of red liquid catches the attention of the newcomers. The leader soon assumes that Maru was beaten, so that the room smells like this. He calls attention to the man sitting at the table thinking he is the protagonist, but realizes with surprise that it is Kiju. The leader does not understand how the butcher can eliminate a detective without any fear. Anyway, it is important that they find the boy first, before other flies in the group get involved. The delinquents start looking for the target. The leader makes it clear that it doesn't matter if the boy will be delivered without his legs or without other limbs. The important thing is to bring him breathing. The scene changes to half an hour ago, when the protagonist was surprised by Kiju. At first he thought the man was a Shin envoy. The superintendent kept forcing the boy's head into the soup dish. It was clear that he was a member of the world group and was waiting for the other members while that was happening. Kim also infiltrated the police and even managed to steal a uniform. All his effort was to continue eating for free in the Charlotte group. The girl checked all the interrogation rooms and not hers. She finally arrived in the last room, and when she opened it, had a surprise. Kim hoped to humiliate the protagonist before releasing him, but apparently he had already managed to get rid of the handcuffs and was now busy with the superintendent. Kim yells that he is stupid for doing this to someone from the narcotics department. The protagonist calmly replies that this man is just a member of the world group. It seems that his group is already on its way here. So Mary decided to beat up the man and frame the new arrivals. He asks Kim to make sure that the police believe that it was all the work of the world group. The girl yells that she came all the way here to help him, and now he wants someone else to clean up his mess. Mary replies that this is nothing compared to crossing the border from North Korea. He promises to pay unlimited food for 2 months if she helps. Kim is about to refuse when the offer increases for lifetime free meals at the Charlotte Hotel. The two close a deal and the protagonist says that she can call after finishing the job. He will return to Charlotte. The scene changes to the current moment. When the white-haired leader tells his minions to find the protagonist, he is sure that the boy did not go very far. In addition, there are other members behind him. After the delinquents left, Kim finally breathed a sigh of relief. She hid in the ceiling. The girl lands on the floor when she feels safe. so soon she has an idea to fulfill the protagonist's order. But before she does anything, the man waits for her to cross the other room and kicks the metal door hard. Kim is hit on her face and hears the guy laugh at her. She questions how he noticed her presence. The man replies that he couldn't help but notice. Her smell is practically radiating through this room. He jokes, asking if the outfit was a police cosplay that she prepared especially for him. Kim just says that he is still disgusting as always. The next moment she pulls the gun out of her pocket and shoots. Tae-sik and his co-worker listen quickly. The officer tells Lee to run. The officer obeys and asks the man not to stay at the police station, but Tae-sik doesn't take any steps. Suddenly his phone rings and he answers the call calmly. On the other end of the line, the protagonist introduces himself. Tae-sik is surprised, imagining that he was the one who fired this shot, and so he orders the butcher to stay where he is. Mara replies that he has actually already left the station. On the one hand, he is relieved that Kim has started the job. Tae-sik is curious to know why he escaped. The protagonist takes advantage of the moment for his performance. He shares that the world group infiltrated the interrogation room. He survived thanks to Detective Kiju. This means that there is a spy inside the police, which justifies the reason for his escape. The protagonist adds that he cannot trust Tae-sik. He may be a dog of the world group like the others, so he will only tell everything he knows when he trusts him again. At that moment, Kim keeps shooting towards the ceiling to get the attention of the other cops. She shouts that the members of the world group are there and are attacking. For a moment, the white-haired leader thought he was the target. He can't help but feel attracted to the girl. At the same time, he wants to finish her off. The two start fighting. Kim lands a punch in the mouth and tells him to be grateful. Apparently, the leader doesn't mind being beaten for her, which makes everything more disgusting. The man finds an opening in Kim's defense and holds her by the collar, saying that she is not the same as before. Kim is thrown hard to the ground before she can get up and defend herself. The enemy tries to hit her foot in her face. Kim just turns to the side and escapes the blow, then draws her dagger. The man asks if she trusts this blade. He thinks he can easily defeat her. The two are about to fight when someone points the gun towards them. The leader asks who this idiot is. While Lee demands that they both raise their hands, the man wonders why everyone is pointing the gun at him today. Lee orders the two to surrender once again, and the leader loses his temper. He tells the policeman to put the gun down. Lee asks how an amateur demands to give orders. The next moment, a bullet went off and grazed the delinquent's shoulder. The man covers the injured part with his hand and asks how he had the courage to do it. The policeman looks confused and replies that he did nothing. The shot came out of Officer Tae-sik's gun. He questions if the delinquent needs another bullet. The officer admits that he did not imagine that a damn world group would cause a riot in a police station in broad daylight. He soon notices the interrogation room open and finds the body of his co-worker. Lee checks the man's condition and warns that it looks like he was hit with a blunt object. Tae-sik turns his attention to the two in front of him and says that they crossed the line, then questions which of the two did this to Detective Kiju. Kim raises his hands and says that he had nothing to do with this situation. They are a police officer who tried to defend his comrades. A member of the world group is incredulous with so many lies and actions. He tries to convince the officer that he did nothing to his co-worker. Kim continues to demand that he be punished, but the man defends himself by saying that when he got here, the detective had already been eliminated. Suddenly, the officer demands that he be silent when putting the barrel of the pistol in his mouth. Tae-sik calls the man so, and warns that so far he is the only suspect of having done it, this with the policeman. The delinquent is handcuffed and tries to defend himself from the accusations. He does not think it is fair to be arrested without any evidence. Tae-sik just asks Kim to report that it just happened. The woman makes the salute movement with her hand up and answers what she will do it. Her greeting is quickly identified by the officer and he asks what is wrong. The girl realizes too late that she made the greeting of North Korea. She runs away and is chased by Officer Lee. Soo feels that he can be released if it is confirmed that the girl is the spy. Tae-sik points the gun once again and says that she remembers telling him not to move. Meanwhile, at the Charlotte Hotel, the three gangsters still plan an alternative to free the current prison manager. Shin receives a call on the phone and is surprised to hear the voice on the other end of the line. She screams with happiness, asking how Maru managed to call her. The three gangsters wait for an answer attentively. Maru says she left the police station thanks to Kim. She will be a little late because of the mess she has to solve. He said he would go straight to the hotel when he left the police station, but he just realized that he is being followed. For now, there is no problem because Maru is in an area near the police station. So far, he has only seen 3 or 4 people following his steps, so thinking about it, the protagonist gave up on returning to Charlotte. It will be dangerous if the bandits go there. In that, one of the members of the world group pulls the dagger and advances towards Maru. He just uses an apple to block the man's vision. Shin thinks that the best thing to do is to send reinforcements. However, the protagonist thinks it's a bad idea. Anju can show up at the hotel and start a new mess, so he promises to try to solve the problem without drawing too much attention. Maru uses an acupuncture stroke to knock the man unconscious. Then he puts the body in a dark alley. Maru feels that things can get worse in seconds since he is in a place with many people. Shin asks what she should do, and he replies that she should take care of the unconscious men. After that, another delinquent crosses her path, but receives a blade blow before even taking the dagger. The protagonist asks Shin to prepare a car for escape as soon as possible. The president agrees and the call ends. Maru realizes that the bandits are not coming towards him all at once, but rather coming one by one, probably because they want to gain time. In this case, he prefers to run, so all the hidden people will have to move. Maru was right, and the agile men followed him. One of the bandits waited for him hidden in an alley. His sneak attack was of no use. The protagonist dodged and counterattacked, then pushed the body and kept running. The chase became fiercer. The men entered the alley and were defeated in less than a minute. Maru left the place without a scratch. Then a car stopped and the driver called him by name. The protagonist assumed that it was the car he asked for from Shin and soon got into the vehicle. A little impressed by Charlotte's agility, he calls Shin and comments on it. But the woman yells that this is not her team's car. In fact, the vehicle that was supposed to pick him up left a few seconds from the hotel. Shin is worried and he says he will call back later. The boy takes a deep breath and looks at the driver. The creepy smile on his face proves that he is a member of the world group. Suddenly, the man hits the brakes and the car goes out of control. Meanwhile, in the narcotics department, Tae-sik wonders why Maru is involved in all the incidents. He seems to be a big threat to the world group. The officer gets thoughtful. The security cameras have been turned off and a police officer has been murdered in the police station. Maybe there really is a spy within the police forces, as Maru said. He unfortunately had to release Soo from prison, since he had no evidence to leave him. Tae-sik convinces himself that the best thing to do at this point is to go back to his old ways. The scene changes to the protagonist. The driver accelerated the car trying to stop him that he got out of his seatbelt, but it was no use. Maru kicked the steering wheel several times for the man to lose control. The car ended up hitting a concrete pole. The protagonist got out of the vehicle a little dizzy. He thinks about what just happened. They shouldn't know his route or destination, but they knew the exact location and followed him. That car stopped right in front of him. He doesn't understand how all his steps were tracked. At that moment, Maru checks his body and finds a location tracker. The protagonist has the feeling that he is not the target. They were probably just preventing him from going back to the Charlotte Hotel. This means that Shin is in danger. Without thinking twice, he calls the president and asks where she is. Shin finds the question suspicious, but replies that an emergency work has arisen. She received the news that her father's health suddenly worsened, and he was transported to the hospital. So Unju took the opportunity to hold a council meeting. She needs to check her father's health, but first she asks the protagonist to send the new location. She will send a new car to bring him back to the hotel safely. Maru tries to recover from what just happened. He knows that his family will be in danger if Unju acts together with the world group. That's why it's important that he protects Shin, but the protagonist still doesn't know how he can do it. Suddenly he has an idea and calls Kim. A few minutes later, Soo finds the car of the driver who was supposed to kidnap Maru. The man is beaten for not completing the job. The other delinquents were also beaten for not performing the chase properly. Soo calls everyone useless scoundrels. Suddenly someone shouts that the location tracker is still working, which left the leader impressed because he thought that by then the protagonist would have already found the item. I only use his cell phone to check where he is at this moment. But the boy's movement is so agile that it doesn't even look human. The truth is that Maru put the tracker on Kim and forced her to parachute. At first the girl didn't want to do it because she was afraid of heights. So the protagonist said that Shin was in danger now, and he could only give everything he promised when she is safe. Kim was given the outfit and safety materials to jump. She complained from start to finish that she didn't want to jump, but complied because her free food at the hotel was more important. The scene changes to the hospital in the main city. Shin visited her father after the latest news. She finds it strange because just yesterday she received a report stating that the man was fine. The doctor said that he also did not understand the reason for her worsening. Shin questions if anyone visited her father while she was away. The doctor remembers that only Vice President Inju entered the room. The woman understands that everything is just her brother's plan. He called a council meeting under the pretext that his father's health is getting worse. The driver also thinks it's Unju's plan to take control of everything, so they better go. Shin agrees and tries to open the door, but it seems that it is stuck. The girl pulls with all her strength and asks the driver for help. Suddenly a mist enters under the door. The poisonous smoke was the work of the members of the world group. They eliminated all the security guards of the hospital and trapped Shin in the room. Meanwhile, in the council office, Unju told his colleagues that the president's delay was enough to expel her from office. The superiors defend the girl. After all, the council meeting was called suddenly. It is fair that they wait a little longer. The council members find the delay completely out of the ordinary. Since the president never arrives late, Unju demands that the meeting start soon because he is already there. so it is okay to start without his sister. The council members ask if he has gone crazy. They know that the man's only intention is to hand over the Charlotte group to the world group. Unju gets angry with the accusation and almost hits the man. He takes a deep breath and just touches the shareholder's shoulder. While saying that he imagines that the man has already commented to several people that the Charlotte group will be handed over to the world group, Yeonju admits that he is a cheater, but he doesn't like the way the news is spreading. In addition, he reminds everyone that Shin went to Hong's funeral, so they should also be suspicious of her. Unju tries to convince everyone that he is the best option to not let the Charlotte group be handed over to the world group. His attempts are in vain. All the shareholders support Shin. They accuse Unju of trying to destroy the Charlotte group just because he was pushed out of his position. Shin is the true heiress. Unju must become aware of reality. The man is annoyed that he has no support and yells for everyone to be silent. He was responsible for raising the shares of Charlotte's pharmaceutical group. In his opinion, Shin didn't help at all. She just works at the hotel and doesn't do anything else. Before Unju continues his presentation, the door next to him is destroyed by a delinquent. The man falls to the floor unconscious because of the impact. Soo breaks into the room with his comrades and searches for Maru. The tracker's location says he is in the room. Ma only has old people in the place. Soo tells the servant to look at the tracker again. The man shows that the location of the target really is where they are. In this case, Soo demands that the place be turned upside down. He didn't know that the location was actually thanks to Kim, who was holding back so as not to fall outside the building. At that moment, Unju complains about being hit by the door, and he asks how someone had the courage to do this to the vice president of the Charlotte. Soo realizes that he hurt a comrade and remembers that Dane asked him to take control of the board of directors, then apologizes for getting in the way. The members of the board are shocked to hear this and call Unju a traitor. The man gets angry that Soo reveals everything in front of the elders. The delinquent admits that he made a mistake and says he will solve it. He gives the order for the crooks to catch the shareholders. At this moment in the hospital, the smoke makes everyone lose consciousness. Shin tries not to surrender because she knows she won't get out alive if that happens, but little by little her vision gets blurry. Suddenly someone appears in front of her and extends his hand. While saying that nothing is lost, Maru came to get her. A little later, everyone received care. Shin recovered in a short time, but the doctor said that her father's situation is worse than before. The girl did not imagine that her brother tried to eliminate his own father to get the position of president. She thinks that maybe it would be better if she gave up fighting this battle. The protagonist asks if she will give up everything. Even the board of directors, Shin assures her that she will continue to protect him and his family, even if she gives up the Charlotte group. Maru touches the woman's face gently and says that she faced the world group for her, then asks Shin not to give up. The president calms down after these words and decides to go to the council. But first he thinks it's better for him to change his clothes. The two wear a quality black suit. Shin says that by now the meeting is over. His goal then is to prepare for the next shareholder meeting. The protagonist thinks they should go to the board anyway. The scene changes to the boardroom. The elders have been attacked and lost consciousness. Unju checks if the main shareholder is still alive. He is not sure and complains that the world group hit too hard. Soo doesn't care about the man's words and asks if Maru has already been found. The bandits are still looking for the butcher. Yeonju is worried that the blame for the incident will fall on him. But the vice president soon has an idea and says he wants to talk to Soo. The delinquent doesn't pay much attention, so Unju questions what he thinks Dane will do when he finds out that he ruined everything. Soo doesn't like the vice president's threatening to, but Unju says that actually wants to make an offer. He knows that the delinquent hates Kijong and says he can help defeat him. It shouldn't be difficult for Charlotte's president to do that. So understands that he will have to make Unju become the president first to get this help. Anyway, he agrees, and the two shake hands to seal the deal. Soo asks what he should do to help him. Unju says that he should finish off the directors. The delinquent works quickly and pushes a shareholder out the window. Kim sees the terrible scene. She wonders what hell is going on inside the building. Enju gathered the directors alive and promised that he would not hurt them. He displays a power of attorney for the shareholders meeting. Then he says that all he has to do is for the directors to support him with his actions. Shin's loyal supporter is against signing anything. A proxy vote should not even be taken seriously. Unju threatens the man to force him to sign. Park refuses and is beaten. The directors fear the same fate if he does not sign the power of attorney. Shareholder Park falls to the ground unconscious, so the bald director kneels on the ground and promises to do anything for his life. Just listen to this president give the orders even with the support of one of the directors. The vice president thought it was not important, so the guy had the same fate as the first shareholder and was pushed. At that moment, Shin's other ally takes the power of attorney and tears the half. He makes it clear that he would never sign anything, even if his life depended on it. Yeonju says he expected this reaction from Kang. No wonder he was his father's right-hand man for many years. But Unju knows Kang's weak point. If he passes away, the shares will go to his wife. Then she will have the same end if he doesn't sign the power of attorney. Kang can't deal with those threats when the target is his wife, in which case he is forced to sign. Soo checks if Maru's location is the same. He wouldn't have to depend on Eunju if he had found the butcher. The man assumes that the tracker is broken and accepts that he has lost the boy. What remains now is to deal with corpses. Soo remains with his head down, and when he gets up he finds a person hanging from the building. He wonders if it could be Maru. Kim lets go of her hands to land on the ground, but Soo holds her arm before she can fall. Then back to the council room. Soo, sure he has caught the protagonist. Eunju is so happy with the news that he doesn't notice a man about to fall on him. Soo notices the attack in the silence outside the room. It is clear that his men are not there. The next moment the protagonist enters the door, Soo is surprised and asks if there are two Maru. He is in doubt, but notices that now he finally has his target. So the delinquent advances towards Maru. The protagonist holds the dagger firmly. At that moment, Kim attacks Soo with a kick to the neck. The man falls to the ground and Eunju orders everyone to finish off the newcomer. He accuses Maru of being a coward for making a surprise attack. Soo finally recovers and says he knows that it's Kim. He wanted to deal with the girl, but Eunju suggests that the protagonist be captured first. Soo doesn't like to take orders, but the vice president says that if the protagonist came alone, it means that his sister and father are not alive. A smile appeared on his face, and he said that all he needs to do now is take care of Maru. Suddenly, a female voice says that Eunju is very cocky. Shin walks up to his brother and says that he will remain alive as long as he is alive. Eunju regrets that his chance to get rid of Charlotte's two owners with one blow did not work out. The directors are happy to see that the girl is fine, but now they worry about her father's condition. Eunju also pretends to be worried. Shin slaps him in the face because he knows that everything is an act. Since his own brother tried to eliminate his father, she finds the second power of attorney on the table and asks how Eunju dared to use his father for something like this. It's not a human attitude. The brother laughs and calls her an idiot. The signatures he got is enough to defeat the shareholders. Then he will be the next president. The woman just shatters the paper as if it were nothing. With satisfaction in her eyes, she asks if the man is campaigning with a piece of paper that has not even been registered by law yet. It seems that the vice president is more stupid than she thought. The man remains with his head down, wondering if he really needed to register something in the law. He didn't know that. In this case, the last option left is to eliminate the president. Soo hurries to complete the task. Shin stands still, while his new allies take care of everything. After the man falls to the ground complaining of pain, Kim makes it clear that she had to clean up Maru's mess at the police station, in addition to standing outside the window with her bare hands all the time. The costs will be calculated, and he better be prepared. Maru says he will pay for everything. The last order he has is for Kim to take Shin and the others away from the building. The protagonist intends to stay to finish off Soo. Eunju tries to convince the delinquents to eliminate. Kim replies that she will make him bite his limbs between his legs if he keeps getting in the way. The delinquent Soo decides to put Maru aside for now and attack Shin. His attack is blocked by the protagonist's dagger. The president asks him to be careful. The delinquent realizes that it will be very humiliating if he ends up with the boy in front of his beloved, so he decides to do it. Maru ends up getting distracted and a cut made on his neck. He blames himself for this and realizes that the opponent's water is really powerful. The fight continues between the two. Although the delinquent is good, he is far from being compared to Chief Hong and Chief Kijong. The two exchanged a few blows. Fortunately, the butcher's blade causes a cut below the rival's arm. Soo looks surprised, becomes more and more angry, trying numerous blows and skills to hit the protagonist. His kicks go wrong, until Maru immobilizes one of his feet and then knocks the man to the ground. Then he broke the opponent's nose with a blow from his head. In the end, he made several movements with the dagger. Soo falls to the ground injured. Eunju is not happy with the result. He yells that if he had known that the delinquent was so weak, it would have been better to hire Kijong for the job. Soo covers Eunju's face with his hand and throws him to the ground. Shin's brother is seriously injured in the attack. The protagonist did not expect that Soo could move even after so many cuts. He is standing still indifferently. Maru can't stand it and curiously asks if he can't feel pain. Soo replies that he's right. Then the fight starts again. The protagonist realizes it's worse than he thought. It's hard to defeat someone who doesn't feel pain. The way will be to aim at his arteries. Soo is surprised by the attack, but says that he is not the first to think of something like this. At that moment, the delinquent's dagger breaks the protagonist's knife. He comments that he thought Hong's killer was skilled, but he was mistaken. After these words, he grabs the protagonist by the trunk and throws him at the concrete wall. So wants to finish this as soon as possible because he intends to finish Kim. Then he prepares the last attack. Meanwhile, outside the council building, the head of security at the Charlotte Hotel waits for Shin. Bae says he took care of the people on this floor and called the helicopter. Shin says he will wait for Maru. They will leave together. Bae makes it clear that the president's safety is the priority. Maru asked him to take care of everything. That's why Shin must leave first. Kim reassures the situation by saying that his butcher comrade is the kind of demon that comes back even from hell. There is no reason to worry. Shin replies that it's okay and asks Bae to take the boy safely. At the same moment in the council room, the protagonist managed to stop the lethal attack with a piece of wood he found on the floor. He understands that the enemy is still a human, even if he doesn't feel pain. He's not that different from a pig. Pigs have a thick layer of fat and don't fall so easily, lest that attacks his vital points. The protagonist uses the same technique on this guy, a precise kick to his chin. Then he takes the wooden hammer normally used by a judge and hits the enemy's face. It should be enough to finish off Su, but the man seems to have a body of steel and will not stop until he is knocked out. The protagonist was used to dealing with violent pigs, and he thinks that the delinquent fits well into this position. Thinking about it, the next step is to immobilize his movements little by little. Then the attack is directed at the gangster's hand. The sound of the broken bone is heard by the two men. Despite this, Su continues to attack. Maru then breaks his ankle with the same hammer. The lunatic gets more and more excited and says that he can't be overcome with this alone. The protagonist knows that he is right, and another idea comes to his mind. He touches the rival's chest and performs the Kijuong technique. The blow moves directly into the receiver's guts, so the protagonist is sure that this time the victory is his. At that moment, Su spins in the air and falls to the ground, apparently defeated. Maru breathes a sigh of relief. This technique takes a heavy toll on his body as well. Suddenly he hears Su whispering. The protagonist can't believe he endured it. The delinquent stands up with a scary smile and says he will test the same technique on him. But before he takes another step, Su spits red liquid and falls to the ground motionless. The technique took a while, but fortunately it took effect. At that moment, Bae enters the room, all injured. He says that Maru needs to get out of here immediately. It is clear that the man has encountered enemies on the way. Bae informs him that the forces of the world group are outside. Meanwhile, at the Charlotte Hotel in Busan, Shin leaves the helicopter and calls Dane. She asks if the woman really wants to start a battle. Shin understands that the world group is acting this way because the president is absent. But what the group did today crossed the line by directly attacking its headquarters. Some Charlotte executives were eliminated in public. There is no doubt that the orders came from Dane, so Shin demands that she take responsibility. Dane only replies that the cleanup will begin soon, and it is not just the Charlotte group that is in trouble. While Bae and Maru try to leave the council building, the members of the world group wait for permission to enter the Charlotte Hotel. Obviously, the main targets are the protagonist's family members. The world security manager named Lee is the commander of the attack. He allows the men to enter to eliminate any tenants. The bandits obey, but it soon becomes clear that there is no one in the hotel. Lee says that it could be an ambush, so it is better to check all the rooms. The men invade everywhere and there is no one. It is strange because imagine the Charlotte group abandoning their own base. Apparently, they really took everything and left. Lee is dissatisfied with the situation because that way he will have to work harder than necessary. At that moment, someone calls his attention to a new problem. All the doors of the salon are locked. The elevators are not working either. Lee panics when he realizes that he has fallen into a trap. Charlotte trapped him on purpose. Suddenly, an explosion takes over the hotel lounge. Back at the council building, Kijuong finds the body of Su, another member of the world group who couldn't handle Maru. At least So is still breathing. Suddenly, Kijuong notices something surprising. His technique was embedded in the delinquent's chest. He smiles. It seems that his student is getting better and better. At this moment, the protagonist and the bodyguard are almost escaping. Bae says that Shin and his family have already gone to the hotel in Busan, so they are the only ones who need to leave. Maru questions why she went to Busan. Bae replies that the enemies have already taken over Seoul, so they will be at a disadvantage if they return there. All they have to do now is walk through the door. The scene changes to the Charlotte Hotel located in Busan. Shin asks how the hotel is doing in Seoul. She receives the information that the bomb has already been activated, and the world group will be held responsible for the act. The security guard added that Do Ranch said that the Japanese are on their way, but they may take a while to arrive. Shin says that the situation is dire, so she hopes that they will get the upper hand at some point. Suddenly, a girl jumps into his arms. Shin is scared by Naru and asks what she is thinking of the hotel in Busan. The protagonist's sister replies that it is great. It is possible to see the ocean and the amenities are also excellent. Naru is eager to enjoy the place with her brother. She soon realizes that Kim is not with the president and asks where the woman went. Shin says that she needed to resolve some matters. Everyone will meet soon. The scene shifts to the past, when Kim learned that the destination was the Charlotte Hotel in Busan instead of Seoul. Shin explained that they needed to regroup in Busan and prepare the counterattack there. Kim simply took her parachute suit and opened the helicopter door. Shin tries to stop her from jumping, but it is in vain. Back at the council building, the members of the world group are rescued. Kijuong thinks that Eunju is a waste of time for his group. On the other hand, the bandits carry Su. The vice president tries to convince the boss that he is still someone important. He displays the location of the protagonist on the cell phone. Ki-jung finds it strange because the target is moving very fast, beyond human capacity. At the same moment at the Charlotte Hotel, the firefighters try to control the fire. The neighbors reported that they heard a scream, and then the explosion. It is likely that there is no one alive. Lee surprisingly leaves the place unharmed. The firefighter tells the man to go to the hospital. The delinquent just pushes him. Suddenly his phone rings a call from Ki-jung. Lee fakes a smile when talking to his superior and warns him that the place was a trap. There was an explosion shortly after they entered. Ki-jung interrupts him to say that he has the butcher's location, so Lee must go there with the reinforcements. The bandit goes crazy when he receives the new order. He remembers that he just said that he was almost eliminated, but Ki-jung has already landed another job without thinking about his condition. The scene changes to half an hour later. Kim tries to sneak into her friend's apartment in Seoul, but is quickly noticed. The friends assume that she decided to visit them because she knew that the menu that day was ramyeon. The girl is invited to attend the banquet. Everyone is happy with her arrival because it's been a while since they last saw her. Kim is also happy to be reunited with them, but she is forced to shower before eating. The girl obeys the order and says that she came to visit them because she will disappear for a while. The friends think it's funny that she warns them, since the girl spends months away from home. Anyway, Kim hurries up and takes her shower. She wears a clean outfit and is excited to join her friends, but the scene she finds when she returns is terrifying. Everyone has been eliminated in the room. Lee looks at her disdainfully and says that the girl doesn't look like Maru. Maybe they passed the wrong location, but he is not sad. Lee asks Kim not to misunderstand. He didn't eliminate his family members. In fact, Lee arrived a short time ago and found everyone on the ground. Ki-jung's men did all the dirty work. He only went there to pick up Maru. Lee hopes she understands the situation. After all, Kim was once part of the world group. The girl is paralyzed with 4 guns pointed at her head. He looks up and says that Lee is a damn thing. The man says again that he did nothing. He was sent to the scene by Ki-jung's orders. The target was just Maru. Lee didn't expect to find her, so he suggests ending the conversation without regrets. It's too late for the man to ask for something like that. Kim quickly takes the gun he had hidden and hits the 2 men around him. After eliminating the other 2 remaining, Lee just looks at her with his arms raised. He explains that he really wasn't involved with the event. Kim walks past him coldly and takes the food that the family has prepared. She eats silently in front of the horror scenario. The food comes to an end in a second, and there's only 1 cigarette left at the bottom of the pot. Lee trembles with fear, asking if it was tasty. Kim reloads the pistol and points it at him. Tears flow from her eyes. Then she says that she has never tried anything as tasty as this ramyeon. Memories of the past invade her mind. One day, Kim was chased by a rival group. She managed to escape with many injuries, but she didn't walk for long. The girl fell to the ground in the middle of the rain and the dark night. Her consciousness gradually disappeared. 20 hours later, Kim slept in an unknown place with people she had never seen. Everyone watched her worried, especially because of the position the girl was sleeping. A man suggests that they eat ramyeon alone. At the same moment, Kim wakes up. She eats a pot of her favorite food. The days passed, and she started to live with those strangers. They never asked what Kim's job was, or why she was lying in the rain. Kim was treated like a new member of the family. For the first time, she had the feeling of having a home, but now it's all over. Kim shoots towards Lee. The man dodges and hits his fist in her face. He says again that he has no connection with what happened today. Kim kicks him towards the head and then hits the knee on his nose. Lee realizes that he shouldn't have accepted the extra work, but now he has no alternative. He uses the sword to cut the barrel of Kim's gun. Lee informs him that he will need to hurt her if she doesn't stop. The guy sees on the clock that there are 10 seconds left until midnight. He intends to finish it as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ki-jung follows the location and realizes that Lee has arrived at the destination. He warns the Unju that his sister has gone to Busan. The vice president says that this is bad. That place is really hard to conquer. Everything is surrounded by mountains. It is a fortress built with defense in mind. Ki-jung replies that it is actually very good. It means that once she entered that place, she will have no way out. The man had a plan in mind and mobilized several men for the next attack. At the same moment, Kim and Lee fight intensely. The duel should not last more than 10 seconds. The 2 exchange punches. In the end, Lee gets some of the girl's clothes. The 10 seconds come to an end and Kim tries to catch his breath. The man says he needs to end this soon. He is not willing to let her go, but Kim breaks the glass window behind her with the body and says she will see it in the future, then shoots the gas pipe behind the man and the apartment explodes. Ki-jung and Unju park the car upon seeing the fire. IO vice president believes it is Lee's workmanship, but Ki-jung doesn't think the man would use this messy method. As the neighbors gather to see what happened, Ki-jung notices a familiar figure. His men chase Kim. She finds the only shop open and enters. The vets look on in surprise. Kim puts her finger in her mouth. It's the signal for them to be quiet. 5 minutes later, Kijuang follows the red liquid left on the floor and comes to the store. He enters and asks if an injured woman entered the place. The vet confirms that it did, but she just asked for a bandage for the wound and left. Kijuang thinks it's strange because she watched the main entrance the whole time and didn't see Kim leave. He quickly remembers the blue car and yells at the men to hurry. Kim was saved by the protagonist and Bae. Maru thought she was in boozing with Shin.